I'm not turning back. Whatever's inside, I'll face it. I know you're watching. Show yourself.
Holy sh! I'll show you how I've refined Google's VEO3 AI video model so well that it cost me about $2 per minute of output. It costs most people right now about $6 to $8 per second, and that's quite expensive. I'll show you how I was able to be effective with my outputs so it's not so expensive, as AI right now, as it's new, it's still pretty pricey. So I'll show you how to get that and exactly what you want more often, and I'll show you how you can access this model with Google VEO3 due to the fact that it might not be available outside of America, since Google Flow, Google Labs, and Google Gemini are video creation AI tools that are only available in the States right now. So let me show you how to break it down and the options that you might have, even if you're not in the States. All right, so this is going to be a very detailed video on how to use Google VEO3. Now, this is going to be with multiple different platforms to give you some options. First, there's Google Labs. So let's go over what Google Labs is. If you type into Google Flow, Flow, you'll find that Google Labs is really what you want to use. And it's called Flow or Google Labs, it's the same thing. So with Google Labs, what you can do is under labs.google, you can choose to access a project. Now, when you want to put in your prompt, be sure to choose the correct model here, and I'll go over what these do later. But ultimately, this is where you add in your information. From what I have experienced, text to video is going to be the best option. Text to video is the most powerful and common use that people are using right now online. Frame to video is not really that powerful, and ingredients to video is part of the Google Ultra plan. So you have to have access to that. And even then, it's not that good. I've experimented with it, and maybe I haven't been doing it right, but it's still not as perfect as I want it to be. It's more volatile than just text to video. So that's Google Labs. Google Gemini is it's part of Google's product. It's their same service, but it's just on a different platform. Their Gemini AI service. Now, with the Ultra plan, you get access to 5 video generations per day. With the lower plan, I think it's about $25 per month or 20 per month if I remember correctly. You get 3 video generations per day. Now, you don't necessarily run out of credits, you just have a maximum amount of videos you can generate per day. And so when you want to generate something, be sure to hit the video tab here, or the video icon, put in your prompt, and you can hit enter and it creates your video for you. Now, those two services, Labs and Google Gemini, both owned by Google, they are only available in the United States, at least right now. This could change in the future, but for now, people can't access it. And to be honest, it is one of the more cheaper models out there for AI video generation, specifically with VEO3, which is one of the best video models out there. We'll dive into a little bit of Kling 2.0 and things like that. That'll show you some pretty close competitors and relatively cheap considering, but Labs and Google are available in the United States. So let me show you a couple that are available worldwide. So first, it's Fowl.ai, and they have their VEO3 essentially a plugin here. So what you can do is put in your prompt like you would with Labs or Gemini, and you can choose a couple parameters, but really there's not a whole lot of options, except 9:16 is added here. So if you want to do social media content, this might actually work pretty well. Now, there's not a lot of other things that would change your output that you can change here. So really it's just putting in your prompt, and then you can continue creating your content. Now, keep in mind that $3.7 is going to be charged for 5 seconds of video. So it's about $6 for 8 seconds of generation, which is quite expensive. Unfortunately, that's just what is available to the rest of the world right now. If you're using the Gemini app, or if you're using Flow or technically labs.google, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. And I've been able to get it down to $2 per 60 seconds of video, whereas on Fowl, it's $6 for 8 seconds. Kind of pricey. But if you've got the budget, go for it. Now, that's Fowl.ai. There's no way to change how expensive that gets with Google VEO3, but there are a couple other alternatives. So Pollo, I'll leave a link in the description with my link. It is an affiliate link. You do get some free credits with it too, so you can mess around with it first and give it a try. I highly suggest that. But with Pollo, what you can do, there's a lot of other really useful tools, but let's take a look at specifically the text to video option here. There's so many options. You can generate images, which I've actually done. So if I just scroll up here, you can see these images I've generated. It's very cheap. This is almost all in one platform, which is quite nice because then I can get my images generated of the character, and then I can actually make the character do movement based on their photo. So I can use photo to video generation and keep my character consistent, which is one of the biggest issues with AI right now, at least Google's VEO3. So I'll show you how to do that later on in this video, because this is kind of a whole all-encompassing video. But ultimately, text to video in Pollo.ai is going to be a really, really powerful tool and is worldwide again. Now, it is slightly more expensive than Google VEO3. In fact, sometimes it could be significantly more expensive. So I kind of broke down some of the costs here. So for every 800 credits, you're spending about $30 if you are spending I think it's $30 per month subscription. Now, if you go up to 10,000 credits per month, that's about 220 or 230 US dollars per month, which, Google Gemini / Google Labs Flow is $250 per month. So you're still getting a pretty good deal out of that. You're actually getting more credits for spending more. So if you're spending around about the same amount for Google Gemini and Google Flow on Pollo, then you're essentially getting a somewhat equivalent deal in a sense. Now, if you're doing Google VEO3, because they have a Google VEO3 model right over here where it can generate audio with your video, and I'll show you some of the results that you get with all these models. And if assuming you've spent 10,000 or acquired 10,000 credits, it's going to cost you about 330 credits per video generation with VEO3, which comes to about $7.2 per 8 seconds. A little bit more expensive than Fowl.ai. However, you get a little bit more power and flexibility when it comes to using this model in Pollo. So number one, you can generate your prompts here, but if you wanted to do consistent character video, what you can do is upload your images and choose 1080p. Let's say you want to do 10 seconds. You can put in your prompt with the images. So I've actually used my image and it's done okay. It doesn't do very well with screenshots, and that's what I used. And so I actually generated images and used this tool, and it actually did pretty well. So I'll kind of run through that in some future videos and how to optimize this. However, these are kind of the price breakdowns here. So VEO2, which is 300 credits, which if you're going to be doing VEO2, you might as well do VEO3 because it's extra 30 credits and you get audio with it. So it's really not that big of a difference in price, as you can see here. $7.2 per 8 seconds on VEO3, and VEO2 is $6.58 per 8 seconds. So you'll get an extra 3 videos with VEO2. It's not really that much to be considered. So that's something to consider. Now, Kling is also a model you can use in here. So in Pollo, you can choose Kling 1.6, 2.0. There's lots of models that you can choose from, and they all vary in price. Now, one of the better ones in Pollo is Kling 2.0. Costs 100 credits. If you get 10,000 credits, kind of similar price to what you do with Google Labs. It'll cost you about $2.19 for 5 seconds of video. So actually not too bad considering all the other models out there. And Kling 2.0 is not a bad model to consider. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's what the video generation with Kling looks like. And yes, it is doing an image to video, and you can see the image that was over here. It's similar to what the first frame is on this video. And so it's still got to consider what the first frame is of a video from a photo. Sometimes it likes to take as you see, the photo here as the first frame and turn it into the video. You could always cut the first half second of the video if you really wanted to. However, this doesn't generate audio. So if I go to Kling 2.0, it doesn't generate any audio. But if I do image to video, you can also choose Kling. So there's multiple options. That's 1.6. Kling 2.0, it doesn't generate any audio. However, if you want to do, let's say, Google VEO3, it does generate audio and you can choose from a video image. Now, I did that with a couple, so let's take a look here. So here's Google VEO3 with the image to video option.
On me, tight and clean, we breaching hard.
So definitely a lot better, and it's obviously got audio and it's got him talking, so that's great. That's with Google VEO3. Again, that's 330 credits, which comes down to about $2.7 for 8 seconds. So that shot cost $2.7. Little pricey, right? Definitely a huge difference compared to $2 for 60 seconds of video when I've used Google Gemini and Google Labs. And I'll show you more about how to actually do that later on in the video. So there's options here. You can use Pollo 1.6, so you can get 400 videos with that model. And Pollo 1.6 is actually not too bad. So I did some video or text to video. It doesn't do very well with that. So I would just do text to video, or those were image to videos. I'll do text to video. You can use Pollo 1.6. This is where you get 400 video outputs with the 10,000 credit subscription per month. And you can see those prices over here when you click add more, and you can choose what those prices are. So, around, $220 per month. Google Flow is $250 per month. You can kind of see the differences here. And you definitely get a discount the more you spend per month, especially if you're spending that much. With Pollo.ai, Pollo 1.6, this is the generation that you got. And it doesn't do any audio, but for video, I mean, it's quite fantastic. You can get 400 generations of this. So you can add in your own sound effects and stuff later. A very cheap model there. So that has actually come down to 55 cents for 5 seconds. So pretty decent. And then there's Kling. So let's talk about Kling. Personally, I like Kling a lot just because it is slightly cheaper than Pollo. However, there's a little bit more limitations when it comes to your outputs. So if you want to use Kling 2.1, you can't do it on text to video, which is quite frustrating, at least for now. It also doesn't do audio for text to video unless you choose, I think, 2.1 master, or actually, I don't even think it does it at all. Yeah, and you can't even do text to video 2.1, which is the audio. So if you want to do 2.1, you've got to do frames. So this is almost like a photo, like what I've done here with this photo. That's extremely loud. So even the audio isn't that great. It's just scratchy audio. So you could tell it not to generate any audio. And then you've got multiple elements. So you can add different photos and you can swap things and add. It's really powerful. It's just too deep for today's video. However, with your photo, you can add in your prompt, and I did get this result. It looks really, really good considering all the other models, and it's obviously not perfect. However, there are other options here that you can choose from. So 2.1 master, this is text to video without any audio, and it doesn't generate any audio either. And then there's Kling 1.6. So these are all, further down we go, the cheaper these models get. So you can definitely see a difference in quality, but maybe there's some videos where it doesn't require some crazy high quality result. And then this is Kling 1.2. It also looks quite professional, but there's less of the cinematic feel and it's less prompt adherence. But then there's also the reference video that you can use. It's included some sounds. This is actually with the sound generator with the button over here. So quite an in-detailed and in-depth program here. It's slightly cheaper than Pollo. However, there's less things you can do with it. So if you do want the Kling video model, you can actually still use it in Pollo. So that's an option there too. So with all of these models, sometimes they can get expensive, especially if you're not inside the United States. You don't have access to Labs and Gemini, at least right now. So here's how you can actually get access to it, and you can get it for free for a month, so you can just take advantage of that option. And honestly, you can probably create as many Gmail accounts as you want. Obviously, you've got to put in your payment method there when you start the trial, but you could take that out afterwards. But let me show you how to do this. All right, so when you search Flow on Google search engine, this will come up. and it's technically labs.google. Then you will be greeted with this screen. Now, when you want to create a new project, it's probably not going to let you generate anything because you won't have any credits. So you need to subscribe. So let's click subscribe. And here you can get 1 month for free, and subsequent months are $20 per month. So get AI for free, add in your payment information, and then you'll be good to go for a month for free. Now, if you don't have access to Flow and Google Labs and Gemini from anywhere else in the world because it's only available in America, you can try do this with a VPN. Now, if it doesn't work with your current Gmail account, you might have to create a new one with a VPN from inside the States. And then once you've done that, you should be able to upgrade to Google Gemini, get access to that, get access to the labs. You'll get 1,000 credits to use each month in Google Labs with the $20 a month subscription. And you can just repeat that process for as long as you really want to and have as many Gmail accounts as you want, and essentially have access to that for as long as you really want to. Now, it's important to understand the difference between all the models when you're using labs.google. In here, when you hit these buttons, you can choose between fast text to audio, which is a beta, and then VEO2 quality, which to be honest is obsolete at this point, and then VEO3 quality with audio. I personally almost never use VEO2 fast and VEO2 quality. In fact, most of the time I'm using VEO3 fast text to video because this costs 20 credits as opposed to 100 credits, which is the higher quality audio version. And honestly, the VEO2 still gets, about 90% of the way there when it comes to comparison with the quality version of this, and it still is able to output hyper realistic result. And even if it doesn't get it on the first try, you can hit it again and it'll essentially use 20 more credits. You get 5 chances to do that to hit the equivalent of what you would spend on VEO3 quality. By the time you've done it 5 times, you've at least got one really, really usable output and is very comparable to the VEO3 quality. So that's how I've been able to optimize this. And so with this model, I've actually been able to get my cost down to $2 per 60 seconds of video footage because of the prompts that I've also put it into here. So it really reduces the amount of mistakes that AI makes and helps it get it right more often. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So VEO3 fast, at least right now, whatever model is available in the future, I'm not quite sure what that'll look like, but for now, this is going to be the best and cheapest model to use in labs.google. Now, something to remember, when you have that selected, obviously choose one output because more than one output is just a waste of your credits. What you have to keep in mind is if you go back to your Flow tab here, so the main homepage with your projects, and then you go back into here, it's going to reset the model. So it's going to do VEO2 fast without audio. And if you want to do fast with audio, you got to make sure to change that. People have gotten that mistake many times where they think it's just stuck on there once they select it and that's good to go, when really it's not. The other thing you got to consider is if you refresh the page, it's going to reset the video model as well. So people have done that and have trying to figure out why their video hasn't been generating audio. All right, so now that we've gone over, the different models that you have available in Google Labs, what you want to also know is how do you get what you want, get the specific results and consistency. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and actually create something. And what I've done is I've created 2 custom GPTs that'll help you get exactly what you want 98% of the time. It's obviously not a foolproof system, but it's been what I've used in order to generate so many different outputs consistently. And a lot of people have been asking me how I've been able to do this. And this is part of the reason how I've been able to get this to be so cheap. And the custom GPTs, I will link in the description below. Go ahead and sign up. Make sure that when you sign up, you've got to hit the confirmation subscription in your email, and then you'll get your email with the GPTs that you can get access to. Remember to check your spam if you don't see it within, about an hour or 2. But once you've signed up to get access to these custom GPTs, you'll have the ability to create hyper realistic results and get consistent outputs in high quality. So there's a version where it's just, cinematic outputs, and then there's another version where it's selfie style. So you've probably seen those Yeti or Bigfoot selfie videos on social media. This is the one you want to use if you want to be able to get the same results, if not better. So I'm going to just stick with the cinematic one for now, just because I haven't been showing or showcasing that on the channel as much as the selfie one. So what I'm going to do, you can go two approaches here. So number one is you can plan the video as you go. So let's just say we want a sci-fi drifter with a man driving it in the sky through a cloud city at night with neon lights. So it's not very specific. I'm not really telling AI what the story is or what I want him to say, but it's going to essentially come up with a random story. And let's say, it's describing the scene here. It's being very specific. So ultimately, you want to make sure hyper realistic is in the beginning because you want to make sure AI knows that this needs to be realistic. It's also specifying the type of shots, what it looks like, the type of person or man that is in here. So he's unshaven, he's 30 years old, things like that. And then it's even told him or told AI what to say. He mutters under his breath, "Every coroner is a new deal or new danger." Okay, shot in cinematic style. It's telling it that's shot in cinematic style. What you want to do is, let's say we don't want him to say this. Let's say we want him to say, "I love the wind in my hair, let's go faster." I would also like to have the cockpit open so that the wind is flowing through his hair. So make sure to specify that in the prompt. Okay, so now that we're kind of refining this output and kind of what we want, because I'm being very vague on this video on purpose because I want to show you how actually accurate this can get, even with somewhat inaccurate prompts. These are kind of just on the fly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that in here, make sure I'm using the VEO3 fast text to video with the audio option. I'm going to send that. Now, that's one way to do it, and you can continue to adjust this as we go and continue to add to the story. But what I'm going to do is actually, let's say that I have a story and a shot list planned already. I would like to create a story with a beautiful dark hair, pale skin woman in a red dress and hoodie cloak with a cape in a dark, muted, gloomy, mysterious forest, period. I would like for you to sketch up a basic storyline and also a basic shot list. So the basic idea here is a lady in a red dress in a gloomy forest, and I want AI to kind of draft up a basic story and shot list. So we're going to go ahead and almost refine this strategy. Maybe you've even got the story and you can just paste it in here and say, come up with a shot list of what's going to happen. And what it's doing here is establishing the different shots that are going to happen here. So now what I'll do is say start with the first prompt, and then it's going to go ahead and create that prompt for me. So hyperrealistic wide establishing shot, and that's based on this first shot that it has over here in the shot list. And it's going to go ahead and create a story around what we've spoken about, and it's going to create an accurate prompt for us. Jumping back into Flow here with our first prompt that we added in, it's still going. So it does take a little bit of time. However, you can have 5 of these generations going at a time in Google Labs, whereas Google Gemini, you can only have 1 going at a time. Keep that in mind. The other thing to consider is if your output is failing, because sometimes it'll say fail to generate or something along those lines, you can simply just hit this button over here, reuse prompt, and hit, send it again. And sometimes it'll actually manage to do that, but sometimes it'll keep having that issue. What I've done is actually gone to Google Gemini, pasted that same prompt in with the video option here, and it's been able to get that output. So sometimes it feels like Google Gemini is slightly a little more stable than Google Flow. I'm not entirely sure why, but something to know in case your output keeps failing. The other thing that if it's going to be failing in its generation, it probably means you have some type of copyrighted material in there. For example, let's say you can't generate famous people like Elon Musk or the Pope. If you describe the Pope or maybe some type of trademark item, it may not always generate. However, I've been able to generate Darth Vader, so it's really just a hit and miss type of opportunity there that you have. Okay, so now it's finished generating. Let's take a look and see what it looks and sounds like.
I love the feel of the wind in my hair. Let's go faster.
Cool, that's actually really good. Now, this is how I've been able to get my outputs. And sometimes if it doesn't look realistic, again, I would just hit the reuse prompt and hit it again, and it'll just go through and give me a very different result most of the time. Now, speaking of different results, how do you get consistent results? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, I think it's important to understand how to say or how to get your characters to speak in different languages. So if you want them to speak in Portuguese, Spanish, German, whatever it is, how do you do that? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that right now.
On me, tight and clean, we breaching hard. Seuratkaa mua. Puhtaasti ja nopeasti. Mennään kovaa sisään. Avec moi, rapide et propre, on entre fort. मेरे पीछे रहो. साफ और तेजी से. जोर से घुस रहे हैं. 跟着我，一定要干净利落，强攻进去。Conmigo, rápido y limpio. Entramos fuerte.
So, when using my custom GPT, let's actually, you know what, let's try the selfie style just to experiment here. So what we'll do is I'm just going to click on one of the presets here. Now, when you click on this, obviously you're going to get whatever the heck the preset is. But if you want to put in your own information, your character, who they are, a little bit of their demographics, things like that, then what you can also do is include in that prompt, make sure that these characters speak in whatever language. So if it's Spanish, you want to say, make sure these characters speak in Spanish. Right now, what we've got is English. So welcome honored guests to my night of visions. All right. So English, obviously, we don't want that. So let's do make the characters speak in Spanish. Okay, so once it gets that, it's going to go ahead and create that prompt, and the quotations or whatever the characters are going to be saying is going to be spoken in Spanish, and it's going to be spelt that way too. So you can see the entire prompt is English, which I suggest because it gets you the best output with Google VEO3 on their labs.google.com, which is over here, or on their Google Gemini app. That's going to get you the best output. And then what's being said in the quotations is in the language that you want it to be, and it's spelt in that language, and it's also specified that they are speaking in Spanish. Right? So whatever that language is. Now you can copy and paste that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do so. And we are going to make sure we use the correct model here. So I'm going to do VEO3 fast text to video beta. That's 20 credits as opposed to the other one, which used to cost, well, still costs 100 credits, but you don't have to do that anymore. You could do the cheaper one. And you may get some slight variations in terms of result, but it's a lot cheaper, especially if you get 5 wrong on that, then you've spent 100 credits as opposed to the more expensive model, which will spend 100 credits in one go. So you've got essentially 5 attempts to get the same type of result, or 5 variations of that, if you're going to spend the same as the more expensive model. Okay, so it's finished generating it, and based on the prompt, now remember we did this with the selfie style prompt right over here. So it's going to do it in selfie style, which is awesome. So let's take a look and see what it looks like.
Bienvenidos, honorados invitados, a mi noche de visiones.
No idea what she said there, but cool, worked out. So how do you get consistent character outputs? Because this is something that people have really been struggling with. Well, number one is Pollo is really great at getting consistent results. So consistent character video option here. You can choose images of this person. You only need one, but you can do multiple. And I've been able to get consistent outputs, for example, with this video here, that Black SWAT man looks the same as over here, using very similar image to videos and text to videos and things like that. Now, it also depends on what model you're using. So for example, this one I used Pollo's AI model. It's not great. So sometimes what you might want to do is do image to video. And what I've done is I've used Google VEO3 to do this. And it looks really great. So you can choose 1.6, which is their cheaper model here. I haven't given that a try yet, but it's definitely something worth considering, and only costs 10 credits. So let's give that a try. Cool. So I'm going to do 720p at 5 seconds. I've entered in a very simple prompt, and I'm going to hit create. We'll see what it does with the most cheapest model there. Now, with text to video though, so if we go to text to video, what you can do is have the exact same description of the person and get really consistent output. So this is what the video looks like from Pollo's model, and looks really, really good. So that's one of the cheapest models you can use out there with about 55 cents per 8 seconds of video output. Now, If you want to get more consistent character results without using Pollo, because maybe you feel like it's just not the website I want to use, here's how I do it with Google Labs and Google Gemini. So with my custom GPT, what I've made it do is if I were to essentially, so this is the first prompt it had about the sci-fi scene that we created. I'm going to hit or type in next, and it's going to create the next scene in this, or the next shot in this scene. Keep in mind, it's going to re-describe the man's character, the way he looks, his output, and just his features. Because what you want to make sure is that you're re-describing every single little item so that the output is exactly the same or as close as possible. It's never going to be completely perfect, but the goal is to get consistent output. And that's how I've been able to get consistent outputs with my characters, is re-describing the person every single prompt, because between this video and the next one I create in here, it has no context. And if you click the add to scene feature, and when you hit the plus icon here and you can do jump to or extend, it doesn't do it very well, especially when you're trying to have consistency in the look of the character. It's not going to look that great. So let's take a look at what Pollo's 1.6 model looks like with the image to video option. There's not going to be any audio. However, wow, that looks amazing. And if I use the same image to generate another thing in the story, so let's go to image to video. I'll use the same frame here. It'll let you choose the aspect ratio. You can do 16:9 and you might get a 16:9 output, but I'm just going to do, or you could choose 9:16, excuse me, for social media and stuff, but I'm going to do 16:9. And then what we'll do is we'll just say, or what I could probably even do is generate with AI. I'll just add in what I want here and click continue. I even spelled woods wrong. It should be woods. Okay, so let's choose that one. So let's do continue. Okay, and I will hit generate. And then we'll see what type of consistency it'll create. Really what I'm considering and concerned about is how she looks and what the environment looks like. What she's doing, I can change what she does based on my prompts with ChatGPT right in here. And so if you have the custom GPT that I've linked in the description, you can also use these outputs to get more realistic storylines and also make sure you get consistent outputs, which is obviously super important. So this tool here, image to video, is going to be super powerful. It's actually better than Google Labs text or image to video. I don't really know why, but it shouldn't be that, but it is. So at least you've got Pollo.ai to really help with that. And again, the link in the description will get you some free credits you can kind of mess around with and give it a try. So let's see what we have the character doing in here. So cool, she's getting onto the motorcycle and driving backwards. Okay, I mean, that's not a big deal because we didn't spend much for that. And so nice thing is let's say at the end of the previous scene here, let's go all the way down to somewhere here. You know, we can even choose the last frame of this and move on from that. So, and provide that in the next image to video generation. So that's something you can consider as well. However, if you wanted to, you can also do consistent character video. So it doesn't consider the frame and start the video from there. It actually, you can just add the image. So I'll click OK. You add the image of the person, and let's go ahead and start a prompt here. So if we go to ChatGPT, have a fair woman with dark hair, a red hoodie and a cape and a red dress walking down a pathway from a gloomy castle in the late evening with fog and mist and leafless trees, and she suddenly falls down on the ground and mud covers her dress everywhere. So we're going to create a storyline around this, and it's going to create the prompt for me. Once it's done that, I'm just going to copy that. And let's paste that into Pollo with the consistent character generation. Oh, and it does say I have to have under 500 characters. So what I'll do, make sure all of the prompts following are under 500 characters. And so now in this conversation with the GPT, it's going to make sure that it has all of the character limits specified there. And we'll just repaste that in here. Let's just do 720p. I'm just going to save credits for the sake of the examples here, and we'll go ahead and click create. In the meantime, while we wait for that, let's do next part of the story, and it's going to talk about, it's going to re-describe her, which honestly we don't need for this particular model because this is consistent character creation because it's using the same photo of her. Yep, she's soaked in mud and soaked and caked in mud, so this is really continuing from the story. So I'll copy this and then I'll paste it in here. And honestly, the only concern I have is that this isn't generating audio and ChatGPT is making her say things. So what I might say is, don't make the character say anything. This is a silent film. So you could, update that. So let's actually copy that so that it may not clash with the output here, because there's no audio settings here yet, unfortunately. But that's where the text to video comes in, which is quite nice. But I'll go ahead and choose, and it's going to go ahead and queue those up for me. While I'm waiting for those, if I go to image to video, which I think is the more powerful feature here in Pollo, and I'll go to Google VEO3, I'm going to get the same prompt that I had earlier. And one thing you want to see here is that you won't have to worry about the character limit. So I'm going to go ahead and go into here. I'm going to, you can choose an image too. So actually I should be on text to video here. And let's go to Google VEO3. I'll paste that in here with the prompt, 1500 character limit. I want to also make sure I'm generating audio. It's going to cost me 330 credits, which I have enough right now. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit create. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to GPT and copy the second prompt that we had. Copy that. And actually, I'm going to make sure that ChatGPT redescribes this, because I told it to limit the characters to 500. What I'm going to do is start with this. I'm going to start a new GPT just for the sake. I want to show you what it looks like to go with the VEO3 in Pollo. Cool. So we'll copy that and we'll go to Pollo and then add that. Oh, we need to go to this one instead because we've already generated this one. So I'll paste the second one in the story here and hit create. And so what I'll do is on the first two cheaper generations here with the consistent character, it's finished the first one here. So let's go ahead and play that. So there she's in the mud and struggling. It looks kind of funny, but it's done really well considering it's the cheap model. So it's much nicer, but we'll wait and see what happens with the second character generation here in the story. But it's essentially had the person walking, or it's actually the previous one here. So it finished the mud one. So I think the first one is taking a little bit longer. Okay, so let's see what it did here. Cool, she gets out of the mud and she's walking backwards for some reason. But that's the thing with AI, it's never perfect. Even with Google Flow's options here, it is more consistent in terms of the output with characters, but it's the best model out there, and it's just what is the best right now. Until that changes, who knows how that's going to change. So let's see what Google VEO3 looks like. So she's walking down here. She didn't quite fall, she just got down into the mud. And then the next shot here is her standing up and getting out of the mud. Her character, her face looks very, very similar to the first one. So that is done really well. She's wearing the same stuff. And I think this is the part that people have really struggled with, is trying to get consistent character output.
I'm not turning back.
Wow, that's actually impressive. That's cool. It got a really, really great output there. So, see, we've got thunder in the background. She's not turning back. Very impressive. Pollo, great job. I mean, using VEO3 and getting some really great results there. All in all, VEO3 is the model that you want to use. It is the most expensive. However, if you're using Google Flow, and unfortunately, if you're outside of the States, you can't use it unless maybe you signed up with a Gmail account and you are using a VPN, then maybe you could actually get access to it and even use the free trial. So people have still been confused as to how I get really great results. So I'm going to actually run you through how I do that. So let's go ahead and choose this story. So I'm going to choose the first shot here of the woman. Let's go to VEO3. I'll paste it in here and I'm going to do VEO3 fast text to video. I'll hit enter right there. And then I'm going to go to the second output here and I'm just recreating what we just saw in Pollo. Kind of compare and see how it does. What I'm going to do is hit next in the GPT so I can create the next part of the story. Okay, and I've created in a way where you can just click copy. At least this is what it should be doing most of the time. And then I'll click copy and I'll just paste it in here. It's using, again, VEO3 fast text to video. remember you want to make sure that it's using the right model. So I'm generating some outputs here, and I'm just going to hit next again. And as it's creating, I'm just continuing through the story. Now, normally I'd be checking these and saying, okay, this is what I want to happen, because I haven't really given it a guide here as to what I'm doing with the story or where it's going. So normally I'd be checking what it's doing and what it's saying, but I'm just doing this for speed and simplicity, and just to show you what these outputs will look like. But you'll notice that it's re-describing her. So with long hair, wavy dark hair, her face pale and marked with streaks of dried mud. So it's considering the past story here too, which is nice. That's really the power of ChatGPT and the custom GPTs here. And so it's re-describing the person each time in these prompts, because it doesn't have the context of this image. If you are doing this with the image, the character, consistent character video here, you don't have to re-describe her each time. You can just describe what's happening next. Image to video, you want to be careful with this, because it's going to use that image for the same output. It's going to have that image in the output of the video and then morph into the rest of the video. Consistent character, it's going to essentially have it as an element, and it's not going to use that image as the first frame. And then text to video, the sky is the limit, and that's kind of a similar way that I'm using here. So let's see how it's created this using the fast version of VEO3. Not bad. Okay. Now, obviously, there's no context between these shots, so there's obviously going to be some slight differences, but let's take a look.
I'm not turning back.
Nice. She does look very similar. There's obviously not going to be 100% shot for shot or just person to person. It's not going to take the person from this prompt to this prompt. But the point is the GPT, you can see, is describing her exactly the same each time, so that AI is, creating the person 95 to 98% of the way there each prompt. Sometimes it'll go way off, and that's when you regenerate it. And that's the beauty of using the the cheaper version of the VEO3. So you can essentially get 5 attempts, as before, when it used to just cost 100 credits and you didn't have any other options. It wasn't cheaper. Let's see what the next shot is.
Whatever's inside, I'll face it.
That's impressive.
I know you're watching.
Wow, pretty cool. So if this video was helpful, I do have some other videos on using Google VEO3, and especially for the selfie style, when the, Yetis and Bigfoots are holding the camera like this in selfie style, talking to the camera. I'll leave a link to that video over here on how to do all of that. But hopefully this video is helpful and provided a lot of insight as to how to maximize VEO3 and how to make it cheaper and just everything that's optional and involved with it. So click on the video here before it disappears. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you there.